Yeah, I'm not going to open Ready or Not. It just keeps crashing. So what I'm going to do instead, I want to react to some cave diving clips. I don't know. I just had this idea while I was training. I was in the middle of just rolling with someone, and I was like, what if we reacted to some of the craziest cave diving, 5 most disturbing caving videos? I feel like that would be cool. Oh, here's why my game keeps crashing, by the way. It keeps saying that I can't sync my stuff to the cloud or whatever. I don't know what that means. Also, when my OBS crashed, my Kick page crashed and said, I'm out of memory. How am I running out of memory for fucking motherfucking Google, bitch? The fuck? Anyway. 5 most disturbing caving videos. What is this about? Please don't be an ad. Please don't be an ad. Please don't be an ad. Please.
On May 6, 2019, YouTuber Connor Kelly posted a video of him exploring an abandoned McCoy gold mine in the Nevada desert. However, what was supposed to be nothing more than a fun adventure with his family quickly turned into a disturbing experience. One that would likely stay with the group for the rest of their lives.
We don't do a lot of talking at first. Oh, okay, he's saying that, okay? Because there's always fear that the sound will bring down loose
The
rocks.
exploration of this mine started off quite normal, with the group staying silent to avoid causing an accidental cave-in, as seen by the text they put on screen.
Yeah, that's creepy.
However, after about 1.5 minutes of treading deeper into the mine, Connor noticed something strangely reflective on the path ahead.
I noticed something reflecting back at me.
So, do you see that reflection?
Like a dude, spider eyes would terrify me.
Oh.
Oh, Jesus,
What?
Oh,
Is that like a fossil? Dead animal?
He notices some bones.
Wait, don't move away.
What they found reflecting back at them was a shoe, amongst many more, in a massive pile with random bones scattered throughout.
Whoa!
That's a bone right there. Actually, there's quite a few bones in this.
What made this pile even more odd was the sheer variety of shoes on display. Many of them were clearly very modern, while some were models that were released over 30 years ago. How could such a random assortment of shoes end up in an abandoned gold mine in the middle of nowhere?
There is bones
Things
inside the
took an even darker
shoes.
turn when the group ventured further into the cave and found a bunch of bones, including a relatively intact spine.
So this is water flow.
Wait, that's not even a human spine. That's a massive spine.
So we can't trust this.
Yeah, don't stand any closer.
By this point, the group was growing increasingly unsettled by these disturbing discoveries, prompting them to leave the cave as quickly as possible.
What cave
and
is
that's where
that?
the original video ends, without any explanation or resolution. Connor didn't provide any more information in the video's description or in the comments. He posted 4 more videos after this, but none of these videos included any updates on the disturbing encounter either. So, what's going on here? One of the first things that comes to mind is that this mine was the collection spot for a serial killer. This would explain both the shoes and the bones. A top comment on the video also backs this theory, stating, "If you ever listen to the Missing 411 videos, you know shoes are a major component of missing or abducted people. This sent chills down my spine." Which is true. A statistical analysis of the Missing 411 data shows that over 15% of the cases involve absent shoes. However, this theory is
Juicy Josh said, just rated a big streamer with 1 viewer. Yo, you're him, bro. You're doing God's work.
isn't entirely likely. For starters, I couldn't find any news reports regarding this mysterious pile of shoes. Which is odd, since judging from the number of shoes, this supposed killer would have had hundreds of victims.
Yeah, there's hundreds
If this
of shoes,
pile
man.
had such a violent history, it probably wouldn't go unnoticed by the media. More importantly, many people on the internet agree that the bones in the video are not human. The group in the video reaches the same conclusion when looking at the bones for the first time.
Yo, even if this wasn't real, even if it wasn't like real, it is just as weird that somebody's doing it without wanting a reaction. Like it's hidden deep in a cave with fabricated unorganic bones. That's just as weird as it being real, right? They're both very weird. Both outcomes are weird.
Way too big for a human.
Put simply, the odds of this being a serial killer trophy cave are very low. But given the animal bones scattered throughout the area, it's possible it was the feeding spot of a predator like a mountain lion. Though, while that might explain the bones, it offers no clues about the pile of shoes. One theory I haven't seen anyone else bring up is that the shoes might have ended.
Unless it was a mountain lion that liked shoes. It all being piled up like that, what if that's like where it laid, like slept? I don't know, animals. Maya, someone tag Maya in this, please.
Flooding. You see, the McCoy mine where the video was filmed is located in Lander County, and from what I can find, that area is quite prone to flooding. So it's entirely possible that someone dumped their sneaker collection in the middle of nowhere to get rid of it, only for it to be carried in the abandoned mine with rainwater. A mountain lion could have moved in later, which would explain the bones. The only proof I have of this theory is that the ground in the deepest part of the mine is extremely wet and has water flow marks leading into it. Other than that, it's pure speculation. That said, another potential explanation for both the bones and the shoes is that Connor placed them there himself in hopes of creating a viral video. People on the internet have pointed out that the bones in the video are a bit too clean for something left in a muddy cave by a predator.
You know how long it would take to get that many bones, that many shoes and bones down there, and then assort them how they are, and then to have them look like they've been there for a while? Like, that is so much work just to never talk about it again. Like, he never put any description. He never did another video about it. This is a weird situation.
Some have also claimed that a few of the bones look like they're inorganic fabrications.
Yeah.
Another inconsistency in Connor's video is that he and his group keep claiming that all the shoes in the pile are kid-sized.
Yo, Artie, be safe, brother. Be safe.
No adult shoes.
He even mentioned that in the video's title, which reads, "Kids' Shoes and Bones Found in Abandoned Mine." Now, while that makes an already creepy situation even more disturbing, it's simply not true.
Appreciate you, bro.
There are plenty of adult-sized shoes visible in this pile. Unfortunately, I doubt we'll ever know what happened here for sure. It's been 6 years since the video was uploaded, and as I mentioned earlier, Connor has vanished completely from the internet ever since.
What? 6,000 subscribers gets
Action
off the
Adventure
internet.
Twins is a YouTube channel run by brothers James and Edward. The duo has been exploring dangerous and crammed caves since early 2020. Yet, despite their combined experience, one of them almost lost his life back in 2022. In January of that year, the two decided to explore the popular Petty John's Cave in Georgia. They had already explored parts of this maze-like cave multiple times before, and had even found an underground waterfall during one of their expeditions. Put simply, they were pretty confident in their ability to navigate through this cave.
Those rocks are
But
beautiful.
unlike their previous ventures, this time they were going to tackle one of the hardest sections, the aptly named Nervous Breakdown, referring to how cavers feel when going through it. Things started off just as expected, with the pair going through the narrow and claustrophobic entrance to reach the first open area of the Petty John's Cave.
You will never catch me cave diving ever. I will skydive before I cave dive, bitch. I mean, like, come on. Like, who was the first person to cave dive? And, like, what was their thought process? Like, I could fit in that. Like, dude, what are you doing? Stay on the surface.
Whoa, entrance room.
However, it didn't take long for the cave to begin closing back again, forcing the two to squeeze through tiny passageways.
Oh, God.
But that was only the beginning. After about 25 minutes of crawling through increasingly tighter spaces, they reached the first big obstacle, a muddy room with a narrow and steep hole in the middle. They had to carefully walk around this hole to progress. A single slip and falling into the narrow hole and possibly getting injured. And given the lack of safe footing around the hole, it would have been near impossible for the other person to pull them out. After successfully navigating around this obstacle, they finally arrived at the entrance to Nervous Breakdown. Unfortunately for them, things weren't looking good. The area surrounding this entrance had collapsed some time ago, making it very difficult to figure out the path ahead.
Bro,
after looking around,
I was literally about to say, like, one of the scariest things about cave diving is the fact that that shit could just collapse on you at any moment. They thought they were cave diving? What? They are cave. What? Josh, they are cave. They're in a cave. What? The fuck?
For a bit, Edward eventually found the real entrance and was excited to go in. He genuinely couldn't wait to find out what was down there and began his descent, leaving his brother behind in case something bad happened. What he didn't realize was that this was about to be one of the worst decisions he'd ever make.
Oh, shit.
Because after descending for a few minutes, Edward called for his brother only to be met with complete silence.
Uh-oh.
I found a rope. Huh. Oh, I don't hear James anymore. Uh-oh.
In other words, Edward was now lost in an unknown section of the cave without any means of contacting his brother.
Dude.
At first, he tried to stay calm and continued his descent, hoping to find James before long. However, after staying separated for over 30 minutes, the realization set in. He knew panic was the fastest way to make a bad situation worse, but at this point, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease.
30 minutes? And you can't yell in this game. What are you thinking?
James! It's been like 30 minutes since I last saw him. I don't even know where
I'm at. Look at all these rocks just like...
back to the last place I saw him.
Oh my god.
Man, everything just looks the same. It's just a jumble maze. We should have never split up.
After calling out to James many times with no luck, he decided to retrace his steps and find the way back. Unfortunately, he had underestimated the difficulty of the maze he was about to enter. Every direction looked the same. The narrow passages and jagged walls made it impossible to tell where he had come from. To top it all off, his situation was getting worse with each step he took. If he went the wrong way, he could easily wedge himself into a passage too tight to escape, or worse, plunge into a hidden drop-off.
Bro. I couldn't do this.
This is the true horror of caving. Even if he didn't injure himself, he could have just as easily wandered around aimlessly until his body gave way into exhaustion, leaving him lifeless in a cold, rocky crevice. The footage of him excitedly dropping into the nervous breakdown entrance would have ended with the camera recording his descent into confusion, fear, and eventually silence. Fortunately, that wasn't the end of his story. After going in loops for a while, Edward spotted a single piece of tape he saw on his way down.
Oh. The tape. Yeah. Okay, this tape looks familiar. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, bro.
This has got to be the way.
They need signs that say like go up or go down or go left or go right. They need different signs in different areas for this. Go up to get out, you know?
I'm getting close. James!
Where the fuck is James, bro?
Still nothing.
This unexpected clue turned out to be exactly what he needed. It helped him regain his bearings and finally head in the right direction. Finally, he heard the best sound he could have heard in that moment.
James! Oh! You're over here? Oh, dude.
Oh my god,
this place
bro.
is a maze, man. Oh, hey, I see your light. Dude. I thought we were never gonna see each other. Dude, I know. Oh.
They're so
The two stayed together for the rest of the
nonchalant.
expedition and made it out alive without any major injuries. They're still exploring caves on YouTube, but now with a lot more caution.
Bro, that's insane, bro. He was lost.
In January of 2014, a group
God.
of cave explorers decided to conquer the Lost John's Cave in Lancashire, England.
I've
It's
heard
a
about
vast
it.
cave network that spans a length of nearly 3 miles.
I think
or
it has its
4.8
own
kilometers.
ecosystem,
The
too.
known deepest section of this cave also goes down a staggering 690 feet, or 211 meters. Most members of this group had been spelunking for years, and like most other cave explorers, were quite confident in their skills. They had also done their research and mapped out their route in advance. But the truth about caving is, when things go wrong, no amount of planning can save you.
Yeah,
Even the
also,
most
like, caves can, like, collapse in random areas. So, like, you're going down and, like, Bro, imagine like the cave collapses in an area that you know you don't know about, or an earthquake happen. Dude, I wouldn't. You'll never catch me in a
Experienced and
cave. I'm
well-prepared
sorry.
explorers can find themselves in terrifying situations.
You'll never
which
catch
is
me in a
exactly
cave,
what
bro.
happened to one of the members of this group, named Bob Johnson.
Bob?
The expedition was going quite smoothly in the beginning, with the group using the equipment they brought with them to continue safely. That is, until they reached a section of the cave called the Tube. It was an unusually narrow section that required the cavers to crawl on their stomach. And to make matters worse, it was also partially submerged in water, making it difficult to both see and breathe. Despite these harsh conditions, the group decided to move ahead. The slimmest member of the group went first and successfully made it to the other side without much trouble. The next person, however, wasn't as fortunate. This was Bob Johnson, the man we mentioned earlier. His crawl through the tube wasn't off to a good start, as he was already having issues with the comparatively wider sections of the passage.
Oh. Dude, no.
He then somehow managed to reach the tightest part of this treacherous section, but that's where his luck ran
Oh my
out.
god, dude, he has to go back, bro. He has to go back, though. Bro, the scariest thing about this, bro, is sometimes the only way to get out of this is to wait there for days as you get hungry and you lose weight, so that you're then thin enough to get through it. Thank God he has running
completely
water.
stuck from the waist down, and any attempt to free himself only made the situation worse. Now, being stuck in a narrow cave like this is extremely stressful on its own. The walls close in on you, and every movement feels like it's pushing you further into the tight space.
Oh my God,
Panic
bro.
sets in as you realize just how little room you have to maneuver, and with each failed attempt to free yourself, the
Oh
fear
my
intensifies.
God, bro.
But as if the confined space wasn't enough to make his heart race, Bob now had to contend with something far more terrifying.
Is the water rising?
Rapidly flowing water.
Oh my-
Water makes any caving venture 10 times worse.
'Cause they
In a
can just
dry
rise.
cave, even if you're stuck, you still have time to think and plan your escape. But when water starts to rise, the situation shifts from bad to life-threatening. The feeling of water creeping up around you in an already claustrophobic space is a nightmare on its own.
Oh,
The real
fuck.
danger with water, however, is that you have mere minutes before drowning becomes a very real possibility.
Or die
Bob knew this
of
possibility
hydration,
all
yeah.
too well. He gave
Thankfully, if he did get stuck here, he would at least have water. You can survive longer without food, not as long without water. So, and if his buddy would like, dude, yeah, I don't know. It's scary. I don't know.
his all to free himself.
I don't know, dude. I couldn't do
Unfortunately,
it.
the water was
I
quickly
couldn't
filling up
do
his
it.
suit, making it even more difficult to squeeze through. But when the situation seemed hopeless, one of the members had an idea that ended up saving Bob's life. Instead of pushing forward, the members behind him tried pulling him back, and it worked. Bob was finally free, though his troubles weren't over. He later revealed in a comment that him and the
3
two members who pulled him
hours to
back
get
had fought
out.
for another 3 hours to get out of the cave from a different exit. This incident also left him traumatized to the point where he can't even watch this video without becoming anxious. From what I can find, he scaled back on caving and picked up a much safer hobby in cycling,
Yes.
and now appears to be doing just fine.
Yo, thank you for doing that. Oh my God. Stay out
On
of
the
the
7th
fucking
of September
caves, bro.
2024, the Action Adventure Twins YouTube channel posted a video exploring
the
a
Action
mysterious
Twins again.
cave someone found on their property. This is the same channel we talked about earlier, where the two brothers got separated and almost
Yeah.
lost their lives in the maze-like cave. They've learned their lessons since and approached this one with far more caution. But with an entrance as life-threatening as this one, even the best precautions could have proven to not be enough.
All right, so the guy dropped us off halfway up the hill, and he doesn't know anybody who's been down this thing, but we are at the cave. He says he threw a rope down it with a rock and it was 200 feet deep before it stopped. So we got this stick here. We're gonna see if our rope reaches. It's still, oh, you were right, it kept going.
Oh my
This
God.
alone is enough to terrify most people, with one person stating, This channel has given me a new fear about walking in the woods. The fact that you could just slip and fall down a hole like that is insane. Now anytime I go anywhere, I wonder how many massive voids are right below my feet that I could fall into at any moment.
Yo,
But that
don't
didn't deter
unlock new
Edward and
fears
James.
for me. What the
They quickly
fuck?
secured their rope to a nearby tree and began descending into the steep cave. What they found inside was nothing short of breathtaking. That tiny opening gave way to a vast chasm.
Oh, wow.
All those rocks are the rocks that have fallen and
This is a
broken
big
apart
one,
and
man.
collapsed over years, bro.
However, before they could fully take in the beauty of the cavern, things took a dark turn. Just seconds into the cave, the two discovered what looked like human remains scattered throughout.
That's comforting. Human bones, huh?
Look how big they are.
Dude, look behind you. There's like a little shrine of them. There's like, oh, that's a cranium. Dude, is that
What?
human?
No,
I don't
what?
know. It's awfully round.
Yeah, that looks human, man.
That doesn't necessarily make, I don't know. I'm not an
Elvis.
expert.
From there, they continued exploring the cave as it kept getting bigger the further they went into it. They also discovered old caving equipment like ropes and harnesses already secured to the walls, a detail that only deepened the mystery surrounding the bones they had found earlier. If they did belong to a person, as the two suspected, it was possible they belonged to a previous explorer.
Well, my thing is like, they didn't. I don't know what I was gonna say.
This explorer
I'm just
likely had
freaking
an
out,
accident
bro.
and died in the cave without ever making it out. On their way in, they did find scattered bones right below the entrance. These were likely the remains of people who accidentally fell into the otherwise unassuming hole. However, the bones they found further inside were too far from the entrance to have belonged to someone who simply fell in.
They could have fell
It's
in,
also
broke their
possible that
legs.
these remains belonged to the victim of a deranged killer. Someone who either had ended a person's life within the cave, or maybe threw the person into the hole and later dragged their body further into the cave. Some people, however, weren't convinced and accused the brothers of faking the whole thing, especially since the way Edward and James handled some of these remains felt a bit too casual. That said, while YouTubers faking these finds to get a viral video isn't uncommon, this one turned out to be true. The video received several comments from experts confirming that these remains were indeed real and human, with one such
How do they
person
know?
writing, "My girlfriend and I are watching from Canada. We're both paramedics, definitely a human femur and a human cranium." But this raised an even bigger question.
What the
When did the
fuck?
owner of these bones pass away? If they disappeared into the cave in the last few decades, this discovery
getting
could end up
claustrophobic
cracking an
watching this,
unsolved
bro.
case.
I can't
I
do
ended
it.
up contacting the action-adventure twins to see what they had to say or if they had made any police reports afterwards. We ended up contacting the authorities about the bones. They were determined to be human and were apparently a Native American that either slipped and fell into the pit cave or was thrown in there after death and are 2,000 years old.
Whoa!
While this did rule out the possibility that these bones belonged to someone more recent, the despair of whoever ended up in that cave alone 2,000 years ago is just as impossible to ignore. They likely fell into the cave, somehow survived the fall, and ended up starving to death while looking for a way out.
Oh my god.
On October 28, 2004, 50-year-old
No.
Australian airline pilot
Yo, something that's scarier than just normal cave diving is when people cave dive under fucking water. Bro, lock them up in prison.
and scuba diver David John Shaw broke the world record for the deepest successful dive in history. He achieved this by reaching a depth of 270 meters in Bushman's
That's like
Hole,
600
one of the
some feet.
deepest freshwater caves in the world. The sole purpose of this dive was to break the record. However, when he reached the bottom, he found something that stopped him in his tracks. He found the body of Dion Dreyer, a 20-year-old scuba diver who died in that cave 10 years ago.
Oh my god.
Since humans start sinking after a certain depth, Dion's body never floated back to the surface. Given the extreme difficulty and danger of diving this deep, any plans to retrieve his body were also cancelled at the time of his death. However, a plaque in his name was installed near the diving point of Bushman's Hole, which is how Dave knew what he was looking at. After staring at the body in shock for a few seconds, Dave immediately got closer and tried to retrieve Dion. Unfortunately, after a decade in the water, his tanks were firmly stuck in the mud. More importantly, Dave had already spent too much time at that depth. Staying any longer would have been fatal. So he decided to tie a line to Dion's body and return to the surface with the newfound information.
Wasn't very steep, and when I saw the body over to my left, I thought, oh, that's the end of going deep. So just tied my line to it, And by then I was, well, we won't discuss that. So I just left my line.
The news of Dion's body being discovered spread quickly, eventually culminating in Dave talking to his parents and promising to retrieve it. After a couple months of preparation, the next dive was scheduled for January 8th, 2005. Unfortunately, Dave's heroic attempt to bring closure to Dion's parents ended in a catastrophe far worse than anyone could have imagined.
Wait, what?
Cave diving, aka underwater cave exploration, is far more dangerous than regular spelunking. The divers have to manage their oxygen levels at all times, avoid often sharp rock formations, and explore the cave system in a far
That's what I'm
darker
saying,
environment,
bro.
because even the brightest flashlights aren't as effective underwater, all while making sure they don't get lost. Add in the immense pressure of 270 meters of water above, it becomes an almost insurmountable challenge, one that only a handful of people on the planet are capable of overcoming. So, everything needed to be perfect for Dave's operation to succeed. He worked with police divers, the defense force, and medics to ensure everything went smoothly, and they planned the dive second by second. According to the plan, Dave would use the line he tied earlier to reach Dion's body.
Did Dave die?
After cutting it loose and putting it in a special body bag, he would begin his descent. This descent would have taken around 12 hours to avoid decompression sickness. So instead of holding on to Dion's body the entire time, Dave would pass it along to his longtime friend Don Shirley at 220 meters. Don would then hand it over to support divers located at various depths and keep checking on Dave for any issues. Sadly, this is not how it went.
What?
An hour and a half after the dive began, the surface crew received an ominous message from the support divers, claiming that they hadn't seen any activity from Dave or Don. Shortly after, another message reached the surface. This one was from Don, stating that he's seeing Dave in the distance, and he's not moving.
Don's dead.
Don's okay.
Dave's looking
While this message was making its way to the surface, Don tried to reach Dave himself. He exceeded his target depth, which resulted in his rebreather controller imploding. This also led to him suffering from oxygen poisoning and vomiting while 220 meters under the water. Fortunately, he managed to keep hold of the line and was eventually pulled out of the water still breathing. Dave, however, didn't make it. But when rescue teams pulled out his body, they made a shocking discovery. Dion's body was attached to the recovery line as well. Following the recovery, investigators looked at the footage captured by the waterproof camera mounted on Dave's head. This is what they saw. Though I should mention, I couldn't find the raw footage from that camera. The only clip of it online is narrated by Don himself, Dave's best friend who we just talked about, who almost died trying to save his life. The footage shows Dave moving alongside the line to find Dion's body, and then trying to put it in the bag. Unfortunately, this is where the plan started falling apart. Dion's body was unexpectedly loose from the mud and was moving around uncontrollably. Dave tried to complete his mission despite this, only to end up getting tangled in the line.
This line is just getting everywhere because this body is floating. It's not stuck. Everything's moving. Right. Light gets caught on the line there. Move it out of the way. Still got a nice bright light.
All this effort caused him to neglect his gauges, resulting in Dave feeling the effects of nitrogen narcosis, which include poor judgment, trouble concentrating, and reduced muscle and nerve function. Put simply, he lost everything he needed to survive at that depth. He tried to cut the tangled line, but the lack of coordination made it near impossible. As he was struggling to stay conscious, the last thing he saw was the terrifying view of Dion's lifeless face mask staring back at him. Shortly after this, Dave passed away. The only silver lining was that the tangled line kept Dion's body close to Dave, allowing him to successfully complete his mission by recovering the body, only at the cost of his own life.
Yo! Bro, you won't never catch me in a cave, especially an underwater cave, bro. Yeah, you won't ever catch me. You won't never catch me in a cave, bro. Oh my god.
In the early hours of...
What is this? 5 most disturbing moments caught... Wait. 5 most disturbing moments in TV history. What is this about?
October 15th, 1980, a small staff at WCPO in Cincinnati was working through what should have been an ordinary night shift. But at around 2 a.m., news reporter Elaine Green and a channel photographer were heading out to their cars when a man carrying a semi-automatic rifle stepped out from the dark and ordered them back inside. He assured them no one was going to get hurt and he just wanted to say something he needed the cameras for. The man was 41-year-old James Hoskins, an out-of-work artist living in Cincinnati's Over-the-Rhine neighborhood, which is one of the poorest areas in the city.
Oh, shit.
Along with the rifle, he also had 5 handguns and roughly 600 rounds of ammunition.
Jesus
By the
Christ.
time the rest of the staff realized what was happening, James already had the entire newsroom under his control. He gathered all 9 employees at gunpoint and told Elaine he wanted to go live on television to deliver a message. Elaine, however, convinced him to record the interview on tape instead, preventing the station from airing an unpredictable hostage situation live to viewers at home. What no one at WCPO knew yet was that the most tragic part of the night had already happened hours earlier. When the camera finally started recording, James began explaining why he had come there in the first place, while holding a gun in his hand the entire time.
Wait, this is real.
Okay.
Well, I really didn't have anything together, but there's been so much violence.
He talked about the violence and poverty he witnessed every day from his apartment window in Over-the-Rhine.
There's not enough attention paid for the poor people in the Over-the-Rhine area, and there seems to be in the country a growing kind of thing to keep black and white at each other's throats, to keep the rich on top, so the poor people have no way to fight.
So far he's right.
They become the knights, the buffer between the rich and the poor. And the poor, I don't know if you've ever been in the Over-the-Rhine area to see the old people. They have nothing. I watch them. They have nothing. They sit in their bed all day long. And that's all they have to look forward to. Nothing's happening for them. Nobody cares. Nobody does anything for them.
He then turned that frustration toward the media and the city itself, accusing news stations of only entering these neighborhoods after someone had been killed, while city officials cleared low-income housing so visitors coming for conventions wouldn't have to see the poverty there.
It seems like the things you should be covering, you don't cover. You never come into the area unless somebody gets wasted. They're displacing people. They tear the buildings down so that when the people come into the convention centers, they don't have to look at the poor people.
But even as James laid all of this out, he kept speaking like a man who knew exactly how the night was going to end.
Can you see this world from your window?
I can see the world from my bay windows, up and down the street.
Possibly a story could be done from your window of the world
I
you
won't
see.
be there in my windows after this, I'm sure. Maybe you can do it from my windows, but I won't be there.
This only
That's
added
scary.
to the seriousness of the interview. But for a man forcing people to listen at gunpoint and claiming that he was about to no longer be here, most of James's points didn't sound completely detached from reality. He was rambling and at times struggled to get his thoughts together. But his anger kept circling back to real problems and a system he believed had abandoned the people
This
he was
isn't
supposed
AI.
to
What are you
protect.
talking about?
This would go on for nearly 10 minutes. As the tape started running out, Elaine asked if there was any final point he wanted to make, and
Oh, this video is only 3 weeks old.
that's when James finally
Yeah,
said
it's not-
what he
it's not
actually
AI.
wanted next.
Jim, we have probably another minute or so on this tape. Is there any other point you wanted to make?
I can't think of any point I want to make, except give me a place where the police can come and get me, and we're going to shoot it out. And you people can leave.
Here?
Well, I don't see any other place for me to shoot it out. They've got their magnums. They want to hurt the poor people in the street. I've got my magnums. I'm ready. I'm loaded.
Hearing that, the people in the room tried to reason him out of his plan, pointing out that what he had just said sounded too idealistic to end in a shootout. But James's response to it immediately changed the context of the entire interview.
Idealistic things you just said. How
You seem such a nice gentleman.
you could do.
I blew my girlfriend away tonight. It's over for me.
Before coming to the station that night, James had shot his girlfriend, 30-year-old Melanie Finley. She was later found inside their shared apartment on 12th Street. This confession made his calmness even more disturbing,
What the
as it became clear
fuck?
that James wasn't using the cameras to fight a corrupt system. He was using them to explain something he believed could no longer be undone. And even after Elaine and others kept pleading that he could still get help, James insisted he was already past saving, blaming drugs, paranoia, and a plan he said had started long before that night.
We don't want to see
I
you
have no
hurt.
choice. I have murdered my girlfriend. I have been taking this weird drug. I am out of my mind.
But you
man.
can get help.
I can't. We planned. We did all these things. This whole thing was planned back in San Francisco. It was all started out.
He seems so put together.
Over the period of time, I've become paranoid. I tell you, the drugs or the angel dust people turn me on to angel dust. They did numbers on me in San Francisco that I ran from one end of the place to the other.
He was certain that he couldn't come back from what he had committed already.
I know that I'm slipping away.
Why does his hand look like a dick? What?
I'm gone. I'm gone. All they'll do, there is no help for me. Look, I murdered my girlfriend. God damn, man, I killed her.
Oh my gosh.
After roughly 90 minutes, James let all 9 hostages leave unharmed and barricaded himself alone in the newsroom as police and SWAT surrounded the building. Negotiators spoke with him by phone through the morning, trying to talk him down. But at 9:15 a.m., while speaking to an officer on the phone, James said, "Well, it's time. I'm going to do it now." Police waited another 4 hours before entering the building, fearing it might be a trap. When they finally went inside at 1:45 p.m., they found James on the newsroom floor with a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
No.
And when investigators searched his apartment, they realized the interview at WCPO may have only been one part of a much darker plan. They found more weapons, bomb-making materials, and detailed files on prominent city figures.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Filed under labels like political creeps, business creeps, and police tactics. Elaine Green later won a Peabody Award for her courage in the interview. Much of what James said that night still sounds like fair criticism even today, but the way in which he forced the world to hear it is what made the footage so disturbing.
What kind of gun is that, bro? It looks like the longest
On Halloween
pistol.
night 1990, roughly 150 people gathered at Blackbeard's Family Fun Center in Fresno,
creepy, bro.
California
What
to watch a
happened?
local magician attempt something no stuntman had ever survived. 32-year-old Joseph Boris, or Amazing Joe, was a self-taught magician from Fresno who had spent years trying to surpass Harry Houdini and become the greatest escape artist ever. And on this night, the anniversary of Houdini's death, he wanted to prove it.
Oh,
His
no.
plan was to be handcuffed, wrapped in chains, locked inside a transparent plastic coffin, and be buried alive in a 7-foot grave, all recorded for TV. If everything went according to plan, he would escape in less than a minute. But the problem was that even Houdini himself had nearly died attempting a version of this stunt in 1915, when the pressure of dirt got so overwhelming that he lost consciousness and had to be pulled out by his assistants before he died of suffocation. Joe, however, had already survived a simpler version of the stunt a year before in Oregon, where he escaped from a wooden coffin buried under dirt. That success gave him the confidence to go bigger. So, for the Fresno performance, Joe added something even Houdini never used: wet concrete. But during the days leading up to the stunt, one small detail had already hinted that Joe may have been taking too big of a risk. Still, when Joe arrived on location in a white tuxedo,
So he wants to be buried 7 feet underground and then wet concrete poured on top of him, and he's gonna get out within a minute. All right.
tuxedo and white shoes, he gave the crowd no reason to think the stunt was in doubt. In the crowd were members of his family, including his 13 and 10-year-old sons, which made it seem like Joe had everything under control. So, in front of everyone, he let his assistants handcuff him and wrap chains around him before sealing him inside the transparent plastic coffin. Once the lid was locked, the coffin was lowered into the 7-foot grave, and his assistants began shoveling dirt into the hole until there was about 3 feet worth. Then, a cement truck pulled in and poured about 3 feet of wet concrete on top. The plan was for Joe to free himself before the wet cement fully dried up and trapped his escape route. But as soon as the hole was filled to the edge, the dirt and concrete both suddenly dropped about 2 feet, as witnesses heard the coffin shatter somewhere beneath all that weight.
It was a cold night anyway, but and when it sunk, I just knew. Trouble. We're in trouble. It's not fun anymore.
Oh no!
The crowd that had been waiting for Joe to climb out now watched the crew rush back in and start digging through the same dirt and concrete they had just buried him under. Unfortunately, by the time rescuers pulled him from the ground, he had already passed away. Pathologists later found concrete under his fingernails, suggesting that even after the coffin gave way, Joe may have still been trying to dig himself out. But the most disturbing part is that this collapse wasn't some freak accident no one could have seen coming. Joe's entire plan depended on him escaping the coffin in under a minute, because once the concrete covered him, there was almost no room for delay. But during practice, the same escape had taken 5 minutes. On top of that, the plastic coffin had already cracked during one of the earlier practice runs. But instead of replacing it, Joe patched it up himself using glue from a hardware store. Even Joe's own assistant later said that he never calculated the combined weight of the dirt and wet concrete together, and that his only test of the coffin's strength was jumping on it. In the end, Joe Boris died on the same night as the magician he had spent his whole career trying to surpass.
Oh, fuck, dude. That was terrifying how it sunk in. Oh, GG's.
At around 9:30 p.m. on May 28, 1982, viewers in Phoenix, Arizona had their regular programming interrupted by an unscheduled broadcast on KOOL.
Us to relay to you.
Oh, was this the anonymous thing?
Is it all right for our guest to leave the studio now? All right, you may leave now.
On the screen was veteran news director Bill Close, sitting next to a man he addressed as only Mr. Gwynn and reading aloud from a handwritten script.
This is the script that Mr. Gwynn gave me, and I'm going to read it verbatim, and anytime you wish to interrupt me.
The words jumped between country music singers, religious prophecies, civil war, and a coming World War III. To the viewers watching at home, the broadcast looked strange enough on its own, but what they couldn't see was a .38 caliber rifle aimed directly at Bill's stomach beneath the desk. The man sitting beside him was 28-year-old Joseph Billy Gwynn, and roughly 4.5 hours earlier, he had forced his way into the KOOL building carrying that revolver and a small portable television monitor. The first person he came across was production assistant Nancy Petranka, whom he confronted before pushing past her and forcing his way deeper into the station, where another employee named Louis Villa stepped in his way and tried to stop him. But Joseph pistol whipped him across the head, locked him into a chokehold, and dragged him straight onto the set where Bill and 2 other station employees were preparing to go live for the evening news. With 4 employees now under his control, Joseph fired a single shot into the ceiling to prove his weapon was real. But when Bill asked what he wanted, Joseph's answer only raised more questions.
In visions and dreams, how God showed me what was going to happen in the future. Those cities are going to be built and they're going to be destroyed. There's going to be civil war in America. America is going to be divided up.
By then, the people inside the station had already realized they were dealing with someone whose grip on reality was slipping, badly. Over the next several hours, Bill worked the phone with police negotiators, carefully relaying Joseph's demand to appear on television and have his statement read live on air. And every time he spoke to police, he had to walk back over to Joseph and calm him down before he started believing he was being stalled or ignored. But as the hours dragged on, Joseph became increasingly convinced that the station had no intention of broadcasting his message. And the longer he waited, the more desperate he became. So, with Joseph growing more unstable and a loaded revolver still pressed against Louis, police finally agreed to let him go live on air with Bill at around 9:30 p.m.
My name is Joe Gwynn. I am a watchman. Read the 33rd chapter of Ezekiel. This is about the story of the 10 prophets.
For the next 21 minutes, Bill read Joseph's 11-page, almost incoherent statement live to the people of Phoenix.
The 10 prophets are Johnny Cash, Ronnie Millsap, Eddie Rabbitt, Barbara Mondrell, Joe Gwynn, the traitor. The Arizona Republic and Phoenix Gazette can verify this story. 16 years ago in September, about the 25th of 1966, all of these people's names above meet at the same time, including me. I was almost 13 years old. We all meet and we're together at the same hour. Mysteriously, I was the only one who knew what it was about. The others didn't. I did.
The more Bill read, the harder the message became to follow, drifting from biblical prophecy into Islamophobic rambling.
Then the angel shows me a book about me and the life I was supposed to live. The angel told me the story about the 10 prophets. Then he told me I was a watchman, Ezekiel chapter 33. The angel told me I would meet all these people, the 10 prophets, the country singers. This is these people's part they have in this. Back to the beginning. Islam used sociology on our people. Islam is using this sociology on children. They used it on my generation to start the hippie movement and drugs, and on today's generation to turn them into punks and punk rockers by hypnotism.
As the statement went on, Joseph's prophecies got even more bizarre, describing an American Civil War and a Third World War that he believed were coming in the years ahead.
Islam is going to blow these cities up with atomic bombs. These 5 cities are Cyclops in Pennsylvania, Ominix in Arkansas.
What? I'm in Arkansas. What?
Yosemite
In Nebraska.
Isolox or Ichabod in Idaho, and Snix in New Mexico. All these cities will be isolated. After this happens, there will be civil war in America. The United States will be divided up into 4 countries. World War III will start in the fall of 1988. Edward Kennedy will lead the United States in World War III. He will be the next president and be elected 2 terms. The angel said we could unite and fight these Muslims, their Islam, and their allies.
But the clearest sign of how far gone Joseph was came from the small monitor he had brought with him. Throughout the broadcast, he kept checking it to make sure the station was actually airing his message, as if the only thing Joseph trusted in that room was the version of reality playing out in his own mind. When Bill finished reading the final page, Joseph calmly handed Bill the revolver and surrendered without resistance.
Hold up.
Yo, appreciate the follow, legend. Welcome. To help hit 1,000. All right.
I got a
Have a good
palm.
day.
I want to shake hands with you.
You really do, huh?
You bet. I told you I was playing this fair. Did you think you didn't trust me all this time? Oh, hell, it's all right. Leave him alone. It's okay. Put down the guns. I have the gun. Back off with the guns.
By that point, every person in that studio had spent almost 5 hours trapped inside a situation that could have changed any moment Joseph stopped believing Bill was on his side. Joseph was later charged with 4 counts of armed kidnapping, 3 counts of aggravated assault, and first-degree burglary. But after pleading no contest, he was declared legally insane and committed to the Arizona State Hospital. However, Joseph was released just 6 months later, despite prosecutors and even some of the psychiatrists involved warning that they weren't convinced he was safe to be back out in public. And 2 years after the hostage crisis, the same delusions appeared again. Joseph was arrested at a Phoenix convenience store after assaulting and threatening 2 clerks while screaming that Johnny Cash was going to kill his family. This time, the arrest triggered a probation violation from the original hostage case. Joseph was sent to prison, and he wouldn't be released until 2005, more than 2 decades after he first walked into that newsroom with a gun.
Gosh.
On March 5th, 1989, a local news crew in Moncks Corner, South Carolina was filming the 3rd.
Do you think that has to do with like drugs? I'm here and watching. I'm just playing Fortnite. You're a legend, bro. Appreciate you. Do you think that that kind of stuff has to do with drugs? It really feels like that stuff is drugs.
Day of the search for 5-year-old Justin Lee Turner. 2 days earlier, Justin's stepmother, Pamela Turner, had called the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office after he never came home from school. According to Pamela, Justin had left that morning to catch the bus from a neighbor's property a few hundred yards away. But when the bus returned that afternoon, he wasn't on it. And once police checked with the school and other witnesses, they learned that he never made it to the bus that morning. For the next 2 days, local police, the Berkeley County Rescue Squad, and dozens of volunteers searched the area around the Turner property off Horseshoe Road. They combed through the woods surrounding the home and checked sheds, storage spaces, and abandoned structures across the property, but still found no sign of Justin. By the morning of March 5th, search crews were getting ready to spend another full day going back around the same ground while a local TV crew from WCBD followed them around documenting the search.
Go all the way, cross.
By it, the search barely lasted 5 minutes.
It's so
as
foggy.
Justin's father, Victor Lee Turner, walked up to an old camper on the family's property and looked inside.
My son's in there. Everybody stand back. Everybody stand back.
Inside a cabinet in the camper was the body of 5-year-old Justin Lee Turner. And in the few seconds caught by the TV crew right after the discovery, Victor may have revealed something he never intended to. The Turner property was immediately locked down as a crime scene. State agents started searching through the camper and the family's home, checking for fingerprints and trying to figure out how Justin ended up hidden there in the first place. Autopsy results later showed that Justin was strangled to death. But the physical evidence from the camper led nowhere, and the case went on to stall for years to come. Without any solid lead, attention slowed.
Bro, I don't understand hurting a child, bro. I'll never understand it, dude. I'll never
Only
understand
shifted
it.
back to the moment Justin was found. Investigators found that, according to reports, the camper had already been searched during the first 2 days Justin was missing, and nothing had been found inside. So, if those earlier searches were done properly, then someone had placed Justin's body there after the search was already underway, while police, volunteers, and reporters were still moving around the property. That meant the killer had enough access to the Turner property to return to the camper without being noticed. Even the footage captured by the TV crew added to that suspicion. When Victor looked inside the camper, he didn't seem to rush in to check whether Justin was still alive. He didn't even call out his name or try to pull him out. He backed away almost immediately, as if he already knew what he was going to find. Now, to be fair, there's no single normal way for a parent to react to something like that.
That's what I was gonna say.
But investigators still found the behavior difficult to ignore, especially considering how quickly Victor went straight to the camper once the search resumed, then located Justin within seconds despite the camper having multiple drawers and cabinets. But despite all of these observations, the suspicion around Victor and Pamela still wasn't enough to hold up in court. Most of what pointed toward them was circumstantial, and without physical evidence separating normal family contact from the day Justin died, investigators had no way to turn those suspicions into something they could actually prove.
Please tell me you
As
got
the
'em.
years passed and the case went cold, Victor and Pamela eventually left Berkeley County and moved to South Carolina's upstate. And according to investigators, neither of them ever contacted law enforcement again to ask about the case or whether any progress had been made. For decades, that was where the suspicion stayed. But years later, a new possibility emerged that hinted at something far more chilling than a family cover-up. In September 2023, a law professor at the University of Virginia and her students were mapping the movements of serial killer Richard Mark Ivanitz when one of them uncovered something unexpected. Richard had served in the Navy, and after tracking down naval records, the student found that the ship he was assigned to arrived in Charleston on March 3rd, 1989, the same day Justin vanished. Monk's Corner, where the Turners lived, was only about a 50-minute drive from the port. And once researchers started comparing Richard's known crimes to Justin's case, the similarities became difficult to ignore. But just like the theory surrounding the Turners, there was still no physical evidence directly tying Richard to Justin's death. Unfortunately, the police couldn't question him because by that time, Richard had already been dead for more than 20 years. He had lost his life in a police chase in Florida in 2002 after one of his kidnapping victims escaped and identified him to authorities. To make matters worse, his body was cremated and his ashes scattered, leaving no way to test his DNA against anything from Justin's case.
Dude.
So instead of pulling suspicion away from the Turners, the theory only left investigators stuck between two possibilities that were both disturbing in completely different ways. Either someone close to Justin had killed him and hidden his body back on the property while the search was already happening, or a serial killer from outside had somehow entered that same space without leaving proof behind. The answer remained uncertain for decades, until investigators announced what looked like the first real break in the case in 35 years. Using newer forensic testing methods, investigators re-examined microscopic fibers recovered from Justin's shirt and compared them to a rope found inside the Turner home. According to them, the fibers were consistent with the possibility that the same rope had been used to strangle him. Shortly afterwards, 68-year-old Victor and 63-year-old Pamela Turner were both arrested and charged with Justin's murder in January 2024. And for the first time in decades, it looked like the case might finally be heading towards some kind of answer. But just a few months later, it fell apart again. In June 2024, Judge Roger Young dismissed the charges with prejudice, ruling that after 35 years, with over 20 witnesses either dead or unable to testify and no real new evidence on the table, there was no way to give the Turners a fair trial. Because it was dismissed with prejudice, the decision was permanent and the charges can never be refiled.
What?
So after everything, the mystery of Justin's murder landed right where it started in 1989, and those few seconds of footage captured by WCBD may still be the closest thing this case ever gets to an answer.
Dude, no fucking way.
On the morning of June 26, 1995, viewers in Mason City, Iowa tuned into their regular Monday morning newscast on KIMT.
Good Monday morning. Welcome to Daybreak. It's June 26th. I'm Jody Husentrud.
And I'm Kevin Skarupa. Good morning, everybody. And
coming up, a wild weather weekend.
On screen was 27-year-old news anchor Jody Husentrud, smiling through the early morning broadcast with her co-host Kevin Skarupa. The two hosts talked lightheartedly as they discussed the weather for the day ahead. At the time, there was no reason for anyone watching to remember these moments. But this would soon become the last broadcast Jody would ever appear in. The next morning, Jody was supposed to arrive at the station by 3:30 a.m. to prepare for the 6 a.m. newscast. But when she didn't show up, producer Amy Kunz called her apartment at around 4:10 a.m. Jody answered, sounding like she had just woken up. She said she had overslept and told Amy she would be right there. That was the last confirmed contact anyone ever had with Jody Husentrud. By 6 a.m., when Jody still hadn't arrived, Amy was forced to anchor the show without her. And that alone was enough to worry the newsroom, because Jody had never missed a newscast before. Shortly after 7 a.m., her coworkers called the police. When officers arrived at her apartment, the reason she never made it to work became clear within minutes. Jody's car was still parked just outside her apartment building, but everything around it suggested she had been attacked right as she was trying to leave. Scattered around the car were her belongings, including her shoes, blow dryer, hairspray can, earrings, and a bent car key. Nearby officers also found drag marks on the pavement and clear signs of a struggle. When investigators spoke to the people in the apartment complex, some residents said they had heard screams around the time Jody would have been leaving for work. Another resident reported seeing a white Ford Econoline van idling nearby. But none of those details reached police until after Jody was already gone. By the time they pieced everything together, they had an idea of what could have taken place. She probably made it to her car and was unlocking the front door when someone attacked her from behind, explaining the bent car key. But finding who did it would prove to be a far more challenging task. With no usable fingerprints, tire tracks, or clear eyewitnesses, investigators turned their attention to the people in Jody's life to find the answer. The first name to draw serious attention was 49-year-old John Van Cise. The night before she disappeared, Jody had gone to his home to watch a video from a surprise birthday party he had thrown for her 2 weeks earlier. On its own, nothing about that visit seemed unusual. But to some of Jody's friends, John's feelings towards her had started to seem strange. Even though they both described the relationship as a friendship, people around her sensed that his attachment to Jody was turning into an obsession, to the point that he even named his boat after her. So naturally, when Jody vanished just hours after leaving his home, all this context turned him into a potential suspect. But that suspicion never turned into proof. John cooperated with investigators, provided DNA, passed a polygraph test, and years later, police even placed GPS trackers on his vehicles to see if his movements might lead them somewhere. But none of it produced anything tying him to Jody's disappearance. And as it turned out, John wouldn't be the last person in Jody's life whose attachment to her caught investigators' attention. However, for the next 2 years, every possible lead investigator
some of these cases are actually absurd. Holy shit.
Came across seemed to end in a similar way. Close enough to raise questions, not strong enough to answer them. This went on until 1997, when a new name entered the investigation. A man named Tony Jackson was arrested in the Minneapolis area around that time. When police looked backward through his timeline, 2 details stood out immediately. At the time Jody disappeared, Tony had been living in...
Rabbit has 30 viewers. Is Rabbit live? Hold on. Is Rabbit live? No way. Hold on.
It is bedtime. But I'm gonna go ahead and what the hell? I'm gonna go ahead and end stream.
If you want Rabbit, I will help you with your OBS.
Yeah.
Before you get off.
That would be great, thank you.
I'm going to raid into...
Yeah, we did pretty good for viewers. I was looking at, we maxed at like 32 at one point.
Yeah, I saw that. That's all. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Because of Poon and Hawk, though. That's not me, that's them.
No, it's you.
No, that's used to.
No.
What is up,
She's too
Maverick?
I refuse to take credit.
She's too humble, bro.
All right.
I gotta finish this video. She's too humble. Razor, call her out.
Mason City,
Josh,
only
call her
2
out.
blocks from the KAMT station where she worked, and close enough to her apartment for the connection to matter. On top of that, the nature of his confirmed crimes involved stalking, abducting, and sudden violence against women, which fit the kind of offender who could have walked in an apartment parking lot before sunrise and attacked without warning. But once again, the case stopped at the same wall. His DNA didn't match the physical evidence recovered from the scene, and after a full review of the evidence and a polygraph, Mason City Police confirmed that he wasn't considered a viable suspect in May of 1999. By then, nearly 4 years had passed without Jody being found, and on May 14, 2001, she was declared legally dead. But the case never really went cold. Her story became one of the most discussed disappearances in the country because of consistent national coverage. But even with that exposure, the investigation would go nearly 3 decades without any breakthrough strong enough to change the direction of the case. Then, in 2025, a Hulu documentary brought another name to the spotlight, and this time, the information came from someone who had known Jody since childhood. Patty Niemeyer was one of Jody's closest friends growing up, and she had been married to a man named Brad Millerburn. But according to Patty, Brad had been fixated on Jody throughout their marriage. and this fixation eventually became one of the reasons for their divorce, which was finalized on June 23rd, 1995.
How can you be like so like obsessed with a woman that I don't understand? You like a woman and then you hurt woman? What the fuck is the thought process behind it?
Exactly 4 days before Jody disappeared. Once investigators looked closer at Brad, one detail pulled the case back to something witnesses had reported from the very beginning. At the time of the abduction, Brad had access to a white Ford Econoline van which he used for work. It was the same type of vehicle someone had seen near Jody's apartment that morning. Once this connection was established, investigators showed Patty a few sketches of a man who had reportedly been seen around Jody's apartment complex before she disappeared. When Patty looked at these sketches, she seemed confident that they looked like Brad. Unfortunately, just like every other person of interest in this case, that lead never turned into anything meaningful. Brad denied any involvement with the disappearance and cooperated with investigators. And after multiple interrogations and thorough property searches, officials found no forensic link connecting him to the crime scene. So, even after thousands of tips and several persons of interest over the decades, no one has ever been arrested or charged for Jody's disappearance. And more than 30 years later, the broadcast from the morning of June 26, 1995 still remains the last public record of Jody Huisentrude alive.
They never found her? Bro, you gotta stop with these unsolved, like, dude, I need you to solve them or I will solve them myself. You guys want me to investigate it? I will. In the next video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me see if fucking Rabbit needs help. What's going on with Rabbit?
And stream, it was great. I'm glad we were able to do this. Actually, pretty happy with the results. I'll definitely be back doing this again. I'm gonna stop yapping because I will yap. And if Hawk wants to say anything,
I was just gonna do the usual second monitor content spiel.
And I'll let him do his thing.
All right, so we're gonna end. Thank you all for being here. Once again, I'm Buddy Braun / Hawk of Second Monitor Content, here with the Goat Poon and the Glorious Rabbit. If you have not yet done so, please give them a follow. Their names are in the stream title, so you can find them very nice and easy. If you have not yet done so, type in that !SMC in chat, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Damn it, I was about to help her with her thing, but she stopped streaming. All right, yo. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are legends. I will see you guys next stream. That might be Saturday or Sunday, honestly. Yo, thank you guys so much. You guys are absolute legends. I'm gonna try and get a video up on my main channel. Probably be one of the horror games. But thank you guys. I will see you guys later.